Uh-huh. Yeah. Hello, hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Is the audio good? 500 cigarettes. Uh, yes. Hi. Hello. How's everybody doing? It's been a while, since I streamed. Uh, but yeah, we're back, sort of, hopefully. We'll see about it. But, uh, we're streaming now, and that's all that matters, right? Automatons, now that's what I'm here for. Yes! Today we are going to be drawing Dwarven automatons. Um, the last stream that I did was a stream where I drew a Dwarven automaton, or a Dwarven automaton for the Trenchtober thing, right? Uh, by the way, I did say that I might not participate in it fully, and that definitely happened after the uh, was that the third day? Yeah. After the third day, I just disappeared because, well, things got in the way. Um, but yeah, I did draw a dwarven automaton, and I sort of hold on. Okay, I'm back. No, it didn't cut out. I'm back. I'm back. But yeah, the third day of Trenchtober, I forced myself to draw a dwarven automaton because I was avoiding it for so long. The reason I was avoiding it was because I just, in general, wasn't sure what kind of aesthetic anything the dwarves made would have. You know, the obvious thought I had before the day three was that they made things big and bulky and sturdy, the same way you'd think all dwarves make things, right? Like that's the main thing that dwarven craft is described with: is big, chunky things that don't break easy, right? But I sort of had to go deeper in it, or deeper into the idea of what the fuck or why the fuck do they even make things on day three. And I ended up deciding, you know what, maybe that's not the direction that would fit with my dwarves. Top Gear for dwarves, yeah. Uh, the reason it doesn't fit is, well, it kind of just, it's hard to say why it doesn't, but in general, or main reason is just because my dwarves look different. You know, like the if you have one of my dwarves hold something that would be a typical dwarven warhammer, for example, like a big chunky warhammer with like the Nordic knots on it and stuff like that, it just wouldn't look like they're the same, made by the same species, you know? Because their bodies are sort of like flowy and like round and stuff like that. So they're, what they created sort of have to look like round and stuff like that as well. So what we decided on was that instead of making things big and chunky, the dwarves would focus, with their automatons specifically, would focus on making things more organic and look alive, right? And the reason behind that is sort of just because they have an inherent need to create things, and they also love to pick things apart and break things down that are in their surroundings to try and understand them fully. So with their automatons, they try to uh, emulate life, right? They're trying to create their own interpretation of life. So I thought about it off stream a little bit, and I think it would be even more fun if they go like incredibly they go really deep into that. So instead of just making them like, oh yeah, let's just make a drilling robot, but have it have the outer shell of like some insect or something like that. Just go like straight. We want it to look like an insect, but also we designed the thing to breathe and shudder the way a creature would, and it also goes to sleep. Like, it has shifts that it works in. Is it efficient? No, not at all. The machine doesn't have to have a break, or it doesn't have to look like it's breathing. It's actually wasting more energy to act more like a creature, but that's where the expression of the dwarves sort of comes in, where they do it because they're trying to achieve something that's lifelike. So they're willing to waste efficiency and energy in the attempt to make it look more alive. Right? So the way they fuel their creatures would probably be like they try to make it look like a mouth and it's chewing or something like that, but like fully in that direction. So that is like their art form, is to try and make things alive. Like they try to make things alive and sacrifice efficiency in the process. So that's not their goal that dwarves normally would have. Like, I imagine dwarves normally they try to be as efficient as possible. All of their creations are really well built and well constructed, and they do the thing they're supposed to do, and that's it. And they do it really well. But these dwarves, that isn't really the goal. And I feel like even in like the machines that Varus commissions from the dwarves, where, for example, this one, which is a trench bull or a digger or whatever you want to call it. I like the name trench bull though. I don't remember the other ones that we thought of in the stream. They're commissioned by Varus to be used in the digging of trenches. But they breathe and do the sleeping thing uh, that the dwarves programmed into them, which Varus doesn't like, obviously. Like, they want a robot that just does its job. But to appease the dwarves and their, like, obsession with it, they sort of just let them leave it in, which is, I think, is neat. But yeah, that's what we're gonna try to explore today, is to try and go deeper into like how their machines would look and stuff like that. Because I like this, but I feel like I need to just draw more of them, right? To really iron it out. Iron it out. Adorable steel munchkin. Yeah. The machine spirit requires meat. So yeah, so the way that dwarven automatons would be made, and oh, by the way, the reason I call them automatons is because in the stream we decided how advanced their golems would be, right? And we sort of decided on that the golems or the automatons work off of a strict program that the dwarves put into them. So they're designed to do a function, and they have um, a line of actions that they do to execute that function, and maybe they have some fail safes to try and keep them on track. But if anything deviates from that line of programming, they sort of break, right? They need somebody there to sort of keep them going. So that's why they're more like automatons, because they're very simple. It's simple code that just tells them a few things to do, and then they execute that in that way. It's not like a golem that you'd expect in like other dwarven media, where they're sort of like almost they're sentient pretty much. Like, they can figure out ways to do tasks on their own, you know? But yeah, they're a lot more simple. How do you code it? Well, I was imagining this is going to be really fun. The coding would be done with ifs. Ifs is basically glyphs. I just wanted to be quirky, so I called them ifs in my world. But because like glyphs, but if like coding, if you know. Anyway, but it'd be done through ifs. So you basically write commands down onto a giant thing. I mean, I can't go fully into it because it's fucking magic and I don't know shit about coding, but it's basically coding. But the way that I want it to be illustrated onto the machines was I was thinking, do you guys know uh the guy who makes the giant musical uh machine thing that plays music automatically, Wintergotten or whatever his name is, Wintergotten, who made the Marble Machine. Do you know the Marble Machine? Like he's working on a Marble Machine X, but like the famous one that got him like all the or the way I found out about him was the first Marble Machine. Yeah, the giant programming wheel that he puts the pegs into to play the notes. I was thinking something like that for how you code the robots. So they would have these drums that have the commands written on them that would spin within the machines and sort of play them like an accordion or like you know an instrument where the code is written on them and you can remove them and replace them with different ones to obviously make them do different things. And there would be smaller drums for, you know, the breathing and more art like useless actions. Yeah, like a music box. Yeah, maybe the yeah, so okay, let's get into it right away. So the way we're gonna design or what I wanna really try to accomplish with the designs is show off how the automatons are made in layers and by different dwarves. So an automaton from the dwarves would be made in a few layers. There would be the skeleton, uh, and locomotion or articulation, which is basically the framework of like if we take this thing for example, it is the framework of all the moving components that make up the machine, right? So it's all the rods and metal bits that are holding the thing together. Uh, I don't know if I want to include. I mean, it's that plus whatever moves the thing as well. So I was thinking that how they move would be with some sort of hydraulic systems. The reason being, uh, because the dwarves take inspiration from the things around them in what they create, to make what they create. They would mostly have taken inspiration from insects and bugs and stuff like that. And I feel like they would have gotten an interest in spiders and those kinds of things. You know, those insects that basically have hydraulic systems in them where they pump fluids through different limbs and that's how they move the same way spiders do. And you know, when spiders die they sort of curl up. It's because, you know, and you can use a syringe. Like there's a weird fucking video of some scientists or whatever who like put a syringe in a dead spider and used it to articulate its legs so they could use it like a grabbing arm to grab things, like a dead spider to grab things. It's weird. But yeah, you could just do that. So I was thinking like some sort of hydraulic system would make sense. So the first layer would be the skeleton, the framework that holds everything together, and the locomotion. I guess we could separate that into a second layer. So first layer is skeleton, second layer is the locomotion, the sort of musculature of the thing. Then what goes on top of that is the way that the thing fuels itself. So basically, its stomach, or I guess nervous system, nerves. Because all these components, these different muscles and stuff like that, need mana to operate. So you need lines of cables to go to all of those places. And also for those lines to, connect up to the thing that produces the mana or, outputs the mana, which would be some sort of boiler that boils a type of liquid to release mana into the system, or maybe it could be some sort of like furnace or something like that. So it would be the furnace and all the lines that connect the different components, like the legs and stuff like that, and also the programming drums. That would be its way of doing the thing it does, right? And I guess it would be the from the power source, it would go to the drums, and then the drums would basically tell the mana where to go, like it would spread it out, so like that. And then lastly would be the shell, which is just the decoration. So at this point, after the nerves and the skeleton are in place, the thing can basically work. Like, it's done. It can do the thing that it's supposed to do. But there's an art form in every part of the creation of an automaton for the dwarves. There's an art form in designing the skeleton and the function of the thing to be, to allow it to look alive and move like a living thing. Then there's an art form in the nerves and programming it to move like a living thing. But then there's also an art form in trying to make it look like a living thing visually. So that's where the shell comes in. So this is just decoration and also sort of protection. Like, yes, it protects the thing, but that's not really the main point of it. They're not designing it like they've never designed things for the sole purpose of like surviving fucking gunfire or something. So they're not like putting a shell on it to protect against that. But I guess when it's like a automaton that's supposed to be like a drilling machine or something like that, they'd probably make the shell tough to like protect against falling rocks and stuff. But yeah, so that's the shell. And all of these parts would be made by different groups of dwarves, I think. I still want my dwarves to have that, the dwarf thing where they are incredibly specialized. Like they do one thing and they do that really well. So that's the same with my dwarves, but a bunch of those dwarves that do one thing and do it really well work together to create like basically a production chain to make automatons. So there'd be dwarves that are specifically really fucking good at making the skeletons and the locomotion, and then there'd be really good dwarves that make the nerves and program them, and then there'd be dwarves that are literally just focused on making really beautiful outer shells for the things to clad them in, alive looking metal plates. Yeah, they should be min-max. Yes, yes. Do dwarves sing during work? I don't know. I don't know what their singing would sound like if they do sing. They're insect-like. They're insect-like, so their singing would probably be very foreign sounding to us. A pipeline, yeah. And I do imagine there'd be like some very good communication between these three steps that a automaton needs to go through so that it actually comes out well. Like, I don't think they are very specific or very specialized in their own thing, but that doesn't mean that, one doesn't talk to the other to make sure that the shell fits onto the fucking thing. Like, there's definitely going to be communication for the to work well. Like, I still want the dwarves to be a very well-oiled machine in the creation of these things, even though, weirdly enough, they are very efficient in the making of weirdly non-efficient creations. Dwarves should chirp and coo. Yeah, yeah. Oil dwarves? No, no, no. Do they have their own language? I mean, yes, they would have their own language. Um, but I don't want to bother to actually, you know, design it or like write it up. Writing would be a hybrid magic and programming language, both in vacation and instruction. Oh, well, when it comes to, I have thought about like how their writing system would work because like obviously I put some on the dwarf figure that we sold. But the way I sort of think about their writing system is the it is an incredibly deep and specific language when it comes to writing because of the function that it has in the thing when it comes to magic, like writing ifs and incantations onto surfaces and having them work, is that they have to be very, very specific. The more specific they are, the more efficient they are in doing the thing that they're supposed to do. So, but the dwarven language is its specificity is dependent on how serious the topic at hand is. So, for example, when it comes to how their language functions in ifs that they use in programming the automatons, it is incredibly specific. Like they have words for every small little thing that you could imagine, and they write it out in giant long fucking strings of sentences just to make sure that there are no mistakes and nothing could go wrong. But when it comes to their breaks, like or their food or their free time when they just chill and smoke and drink, their language becomes so much more loose. Like what the fuck was their smoke called? I forgot what their smoke was called. The thing that they smoke, I completely forgot what it was called. I haven't said it in so long. But yeah, they have a word for what they smoke. And that word also means taking a break and also means the drink. He forgot. Yeah, grot. Grot. So they would have a word grot, which is the thing that they smoke on their breaks and while they work and stuff like that. But that word can mean so many different things in so many different contexts because it's not a serious topic. It's not work related, and if it's not work related, they don't care that much. So it becomes so much more just whatever. The mood will, specify what we're talking about, right? And I think that's fun. It makes sense that be the case. But yeah, grot also means something is good as well. Like something being grot is good because grot is good, and drink is also good, and free time is also good. They could also have some tonal aspects. Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, their language, the thing, you can't speak Dwarven in the world. I don't expect a human to be able to speak Dwarven because, the vocal cords and stuff like that are just completely different. So the way that people, like the Varusians and the dwarves, actually communicate is that the dwarves made these like smoking pipes to smoke grot, but they made ones that have incantations on them, like ifs written on them, where if they huff the smoke and speak through it, like they blow smoke in your face while talking, and it hits your face, it will like translate it for you. So they basically blow smoke in your face, and you can understand them while they're speaking. So you're getting a secondhand high as well while bartering for prices, which I would say is probably advantageous for the dwarves, as all of the merchants from Varus are gradually getting higher and higher while arguing about prices. with the dwarves. Yeah, so I feel like that's a part of the dwarven strategy as well. They know that humans are quite a lot more susceptible to their smoke than the dwarves are. So when it comes to um, dwarven, how do you call it, bartering, it is long. Like they drag it out. They won't just be like, oh yeah, come on, let's haggle the price down. 20, 25. No, give me 30. No, they're like, let's talk about this over a meal. Like let's have a 30-minute, like maybe an hour long. They live longer as well, so their perception of time is a little stretched, but they'll gladly invite you to a meal to talk it over just so you can get a lot more fucked over, or just more hammered so they can get a better deal out of you. Yeah. So I think that's fine. So it's like they have an inviting and welcoming culture, but it's also plays into their favor as well. How do the humans talk back to them? I was thinking that when it comes to the humans talking back to them, the dwarves, like, you can learn to just understand each other as well. Like that's not it's not like the pipes are the only way that they can communicate. You can learn to uh humans can learn to understand, like, to hear dwarven speech, because they don't you're not limited by that. You can learn to understand it, like hear it. So you can have human translators that understand dwarves, but they just can't speak it back. You can also have dwarves that understand English but can't speak it back. So I guess you can just have dwarves that can understand English but they can't speak English. Does that make sense? Wait, so if you hold on. So yeah, if you have one of each, if you have a dwarf that can understand English and speak Dwarven, which they obviously would be able to, and just a person that can understand Dwarven, then if you have both in the same room with some people and dwarves, then you can understand each other. But obviously, in most situations, that wouldn't be the case. But in most situations, it's only necessary for a dwarf to understand English and have the pipe. That's it, right? Because then you can talk English to him, and he can smoke the smoke, the grot, and puff it in your face so you can understand him. That's it. Humans speak literal English. Well, the thing is, we can go the Tolkien way and say they speak a English, or like a human language, but the stories are translated into English, kind of thing. uh, to get you more immersed, I guess. But like, I don't have the brain capacity to do mind gymnastics when it comes to like fantasy languages and shit. So just to make it easy, I just say they speak English. Or if you want to, you can imagine that they speak some sort of very interesting, very well thought out fantasy language that sounds really good, but it's just translated to English so that the common folk can understand it. That's up to you. But to me, it's just English, because I don't think, at least for my world, having my own fantasy language, if I bothered to write one in like 5 fucking years, I come up with my own actual language that actually works, and just have the people in my world speak that instead of English, that wouldn't add anything to my world. It wouldn't, because it's just like, oh wow, they speak the different language. It'll just make the translation process longer, but it doesn't add anything to the theme of the world or anything. So just English. That's it. It's just English. I can't be bothered. It doesn't help me in any way to make up my own fantasy language. Yeah, wait, did my chat freeze up? It's not moving. Hold on. Yeah, it did. Yeah. Reminds me of the Hellboy and Avatar where they did invent a separate language. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cool, but and also if you do like, or if I do like the half uh new invented language thing that some worlds do, I don't think that's gonna fit at all. Sometimes I think that can come across as a little goofy. Yeah, what I mean by like half fantasy language is, when it's like they speak mostly English, but then they just have some words that they have the fantasy equivalent of that word. I think Warframe does it a lot for like their different open world parts. Like there's one on Eidolon. Eidolon has that thing where like the people on Eidolon will just speak English mostly, but they'll just have like those, a few words, Sayula of Tenno or whatever, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ, like it just sounds kind of goofy to me, my opinion, but it just sounds a little goofy when it's like, oh, I want a fantasy language, but I just want a few little words, so let me just change the word hello to like Sayula, and then he's like, Sayula, my friend, hello to my shop. It's like, oh, sounds weird. Yeah, yeah. Some other languages in Warframe are completely like the Corpus and the Grineer and stuff like that. They also have uh like full different languages, but it's more like, is it called a conlang, where it's just like the English alphabet with some letters removed, and then each letter is pronounced like differently, but it's still structured like English phrases and words and sentences and stuff. Yeah, so the Grenier uh the other ones are like conlangs. I think there's a video somebody made where they talked about the Warframe alphabets for the different races or species or whatever factions. It's fucking funny because the thing is, with just using the English alphabet and removing some letters to make it sound different, is that some words become very goofy because you're missing the letters that differentiate them from other words. So in the video, he just like says some phrases in the it wasn't Grenier, it was the other one. I completely forgot who the fuck the other faction is. In whatever other faction's language, and it, because the words were missing a bunch of the letters, it just came out as E. Like that, because yeah, Corpus, yeah, yeah. I forgot what the, yeah, it was a video talking about the Corpus language, I think. Do the Dutch exist? Sadly, no. The Dutch used to be in the Monster Garden, actually. Like, it was on the world map. Dutch were right there. It was Ram, Varus, and then just like a separate island that was Dutch. But then, um, it got replaced by one of the world pillars. So basically, I just slammed a giant pillar on top of the Dutch, and now they're gone, erased from the world. Rom is kind of Dutch, right? What do you mean, kind of Dutch? I don't know what using Dutch as an adjective would imply. What is what does it mean to be kind of Dutch? Varus is just fantasy French. What do you mean? I don't like I don't like using countries as adjectives because I don't know enough about the countries to know what those things would imply. Like industrious? Well, I yeah, they are industrious, but I don't know to associate kind of Dutch meaning industrious, you know? You can just say Rom is an industrious or country. That's it. You don't have to it's kind of Dutch. But yeah, cuz I don't try to make any real world connections between my fantasy countries and the real world. Any connections that happen to be made or coincidences that happen through me using real world inspirations and stuff are not intended. Like I don't try I very much am against trying to make like real world connections where it's like, oh, because he uses Thai art for Varus, does that mean that Varus and its military structure or political like situation is trying to say something about Thai's political no, no, not at all. It's not that deep. I use Thai as inspiration because it looks cool. That's it. I'm not trying to say anything about any of the countries that I take inspiration from for my fantasy countries in my fantasy world building project. There are like I'm not, yeah, because sometimes I worry that gets mistaken. Like I have something to say about what's happening in the real world. Not at all. Like none of it is commentary on anything. Oh, are you trying to say something about war? No, I just like the aesthetic of trenches. It's purely aesthetic. The whole world is just for the sake of making cool looking things. But yeah, because I don't know enough about the real world to say anything about it. Like I try not to involve myself in any sort of real life politics or stuff like that because I'm just too uneducated to have a say in it. And it just gives me a headache. Like I don't see the reason of it. It gives me a headache. Oops, sorry. So only inspiration is for vibes. Exactly. Yeah, sorry. Drawing is not happening. So yeah, I think what we can do is try to think of what automatons the dwarves would have, like what they would use them for. I think they would definitely have a transport one that transports resources, um, and well, actually, they might just use conveyor belts. Well. Okay, they have a digging one, that's for sure. Digging, which might be this one, but we can also do like larger tunnels. Then they would also have one for I don't know. Actually, what else do the dwarves need shit for? Because like I feel like uh what I mean by what they would use automatons for is like moving automatons, ones with legs that go around and do things. But I feel like most of their automatons would be a sort of in between. Like it's not like they have legs and stuff. They would have conveyor belts that also use ifs, or their forges would be powered by ifs to lift giant heavy hammers to smash them down. But those wouldn't really be automatons. They're more like big industrial machines. You know, they don't have legs. They're not trying to make those seem alive. Or are we going like the full, like, they want everything to seem alive? Everything. Like, even their fucking hydraulic press hammers or whatever, they try to have those have asthma or something. Like, the hammer smashes down 10 times, and then the dwarf goes, okay, we need to have him rest because he's gonna be out of breath. Lumber machine. Oh yeah, some sort of lumber machine would make sense because I feel like wood would be a very valuable resource for the dwarves. I feel like they would be very much against going to the surface. Maybe they don't like light or something, their eyes aren't accustomed to it and stuff like that. But they would instead design machines to go out, cut wood, and then come back to bring them wood. That might make sense. Wood cut. Wood machine. So they can be out of breath? No, their machines don't have to be out of breath. It's that they want the dwarves have an urge to design things to seem alive. So they intentionally put flaws into it to make it breathe and eat and rest, you know? Sounds like a lobster job. Oh yeah, it does sound like a lobster job actually. Harvesting food, water and stuff. They have machine spirits. Oh yeah. Building machines would be really good as well. Like the digging, you know, tunnel bores where, um, tunnel bores they have the big head in front, right? That digs, and then they have like a whole fucking conveyor system after that that removes the material, and moves it along. But then they also have a part of the tunnel bore behind it that puts like support plates or like concrete plates in a circle around the already dug dirt tunnel to, you know, reinforce it, obviously. And those are like, so that could be interesting. So yeah, we can do that. I feel like any sort of other. Oh yeah, I yes, the dwarves would totally be obsessed with making the most stupid, useless little automatons, like a walking grot smoking pipe or something like that. Like just a smoking pipe on legs that's designed to follow you. Hello, Valley Boar. Welcome, welcome. Everybody, Valley Boar is also a YouTuber who does world building, and by the way, he just recently posted a new video talking about his world building project, and it's back on track again, or it's starting to be continued. Words are not uh, words are not my friends today. But yeah, he's continuing his project, and he finally got like a new video out that is actually really fucking cool. Has some really neat drawings in it, and he talks about the world as a whole and the direction that he's going in with it. So definitely recommend checking that out. Some very interesting ideas going on there. A butter passing automaton. It would be weird with a living conveyor belt. I mean, like with conveyor belts, I sort of feel like they would make them undulate. Undulate is a good word for it. So instead of just being like a boring straight conveyor belt, I feel like they would take inspiration from the way that like a caterpillar would move, where their legs, or maybe a centipede. If you watch like a centipede move from the side, their legs sort of go like this. Like they'll the legs around one of them would point towards one in the middle, and then they spread out again, and then they go in, and it sort of like goes in a wave pattern. Millipedes, yeah, millipede legs. And they're very satisfying to look at. Millipedes walking is very nice to look at because all the legs just do their thing really well. How is grot made? I feel like it would be some sort of fungus. Also, how are dwarven automatons? Uh, how are they powered? Like, what's their fuel source? I sort of imagine because they want them to seem alive, they would intentionally make fuel that makes it so that the creatures or the automatons have to eat, kind of. So some sort of like solid fuel would make sense. They could you can imbue mana into foods as well. Like if you, for example, water a plant with mana infused water, the plant would soak up the mana, and you would have like a vegetable that has an amount of mana in it. Um, so they could do that with like a type of plant that they cultivate, and they intentionally put like a bunch of mana in it. They could dry it out in something to make it its weight ratio, like its weight or mana per weight ratio better. They could like dry it out and stuff, like some sort of dried out fungus, uh, which they throw into their automatons for them to churn up and then burn. If it's dried out, then burning it would make the most sense, because burning it would release the mana, which then the machine could then take in and spew out the rest of the junk. But if it's yeah, I feel like something dried would be the best. Oh shit, you know what? Something dried would actually be really fucking good. Like some sort of wood equivalent that they make, because you know why? You know why? They can have the fuel itself, the mana fuel, be burned to release the mana to fuel the machine with mana. But then they could also use the heat from the burning to boil water, so they can have like a double thing going on. They can have the mana fuel the machine, and then a steam engine or something like that to put steam into all of the different actuators and pistons, and have the mana be the thing that's like the valves getting controlled by mana to send the steam into different compartments and parts of the machine. Let's not forget they got to be inefficient. Well, not let's not forget they got to be inefficient. Not like that inefficient. Like they don't try to intentionally make things bad. It's just that their idea of what the goal of a machine is different. The word I used is inefficient, but it's not really inefficient. It just means what they're trying to accomplish with their automatons is different from what we would expect them to want to happen. Like we would think you'd want a machine to be as efficient as possible and do its job and not have to rest and breathe, obviously. But for them, those are essential parts of making an automaton, is having them have those functions and movements and stuff like that, because that's a part of making them look alive. So to them, that's just their function. It makes sense to them, right? But we'd see it as inefficient, because that's just wasting like a little bit of your energy that you could be using, or that the machine could be using to do its job, to just do something that doesn't do anything. What if they were powered by burning magic tar? Well, yeah, yeah, some sort of magic tar. Well, the tar drug, like that tar, the thing that comes out of the veins of mages, that doesn't have any like mana in it. I don't think, or I don't know what the constant or like how much mana you could put into it. I did think that it would be flammable, actually. So yeah. Hmm. It might be Manitar. Who knows? Because every type of material in the world has a certain amount of mana saturation that it can have. Mana saturation is how much mana it can hold before it basically destroys itself. So, by volume. So like uh, a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter cube of tar that comes out of the veins of mages could hold dot 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 amount of mana compared to a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter meter cube of water, uh, how much mana that can hold, you know? Do the nations have royal banners? Funnily enough, I have not designed any sort of flags or banners for either of the countries. I feel like due to the war, they would definitely have changed quite a bit over time, being a lot more focused on their religions and motivations for the war. So probably if I was to have like a quick think about it, um, Rom would definitely have some sort of symbol that has a star on it. Because that's just what that's their symbol for magic. So it'd either be like a four-sided star or like a five-sided star. Hold on, I'm having trouble drawing a star. Yeah, that's close enough. And also maybe some sort of thing like this. Uh, being like a symbol of mana coming out of the center of the earth. Oh, and also you could also do like this, something like that, like some sort of cross shape with a star at the bottom. It being and the this going like that, something like that. The line going across representing the you know just the earth itself, like the ground level where all the people are. The line going down being their journey to the center of the core, and the star representing Yorm, the god of magic, and this line going up and spreading out into the tree being the magic that comes from within the earth, something like that. Right? And they could decorate this and detail it as much as possible. I was thinking, obviously, like their coins, their finger coins. There was one of them that has a design on it where instead it's like the line going down is sort of more like a staircase with people in it to represent the pilgrimage to the center of the earth. So it shows the people, uh, and then the star, or because I feel like it makes the most sense for them to do something like this because Rom is very literal, 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 literal. They're very literal with what their visual language is when they decorate things and design things and stuff like that. Like when they decorate armor, they will put things that make them think of protection onto the armor. They'll put a war boar on it, or like a turtle or something like that, because that makes them think of protection. They're very literal in that sense. So I feel like their symbol would also be something very literal, where it's just like, oh yeah, this our symbol is literally us going down to the god of magic, and this line is the earth, and the line going up is magic. Like that. It makes sense to them. It's the most straightforward thing they could illustrate. And for Varus, I feel like it would be it's definitely something associating with the pillars. A very prominent image for representing the pillars in Varusian culture is candles, um, or carved candles. So they oftentimes have these very elaborate candle holders with these also very elaborately carved candles in them, um, which is supposed to represent the pillars. So they're carved with the same sort of patterns that you'd see on the pillars that they're trying to climb. And it being a candle is and slowly melting sort of symbolizes their journey to the top of the pillars and them getting closer to it because the candle gets shorter, right? So in like ceremonies or religious ceremonies or parades or stuff like that, candle imagery is very prominent. So maybe something to do with candles. I don't know how I guess you could sort of just simplify a candle and like the flame being like Varus's ambition or something like that into some sort of symbol for them. Would be funny if the candles serve an entirely decorational role and are basically unusable outside of ceremonies. Well, they wouldn't be unusable. They're still a candle. Like they give light and stuff like that. It's just that a lot of parts of it are unnecessary. Like the obviously the very intricate carvings on them. I mean, I don't doubt that they would have automated the process and made molds to make those carved candles so they'd have a mold with intricate carvings and then just pour wax into it. But then the really pricey ones, if you really wanted to show your dedication to Varus, you'd get one that's hand carved. Um, the flame represents the top of the pillars. Yeah, impractically long. Do they have film yet? No, no, no. Main forms of entertainment when it comes to Varus is still plays and performances, either musicals, but the kind of plays you'd imagine where fucking opera singers and stuff like that, where it's very costume heavy on stage performances, but it's more Thai, if that makes sense. There's this Thai performance style that's called Korn, which is it's used to tell stories, and it has like a specific way of telling those stories where they dance on stage and there's normally like a narration over it. So it's not like any of the performers on the stage are talking. It's more like there's a narrator telling you the story in the form of like poem, while there's music blaring and the dancers in costume are acting out the scenes. And normally those scenes or sometimes instead of just being like a dance routine, the dance routine leads to the performers sort of ending up in a very interesting position. And by position, I mean they strike a pose and then hold that pose for a bit because it's like a famous recognizable pose that is a part of the performance, and then they continue their routine and then they once again strike a pose. I like that a lot in Korn, by the way. The poses that they strike are really cool because I feel like they are emulating the way that Thai art is drawn. And if you see if you know how Thai art is drawn, it is very flat. The way like traditional Thai art is drawn is we don't have that many angles in our art. Like there are you can draw a face looking to the side and then looking forward and then looking to the other side. The way we draw feet is only sideways. We don't I don't think I've ever drawn a foot or I've ever seen a foot in Thai traditional art being drawn facing any other way than left or right. And the same with like the body pose is they're very splayed out. So oftentimes you'd see figures being posed like you know, uh, something like this, like holding a staff or something, and then looking to the side, and then like with their other hand up, like all elegant style. So it's all like very flat and splayed out. There's never like any body parts overlapping or like them fully turning to the side. So when like in corn performances, they would also strike those poses, but they're very hard to do as a person because your hips don't really move outwards like that. But they're cool to look at when you see like like the performers from afar try to emulate a 2D pose as a 3D person, and it also makes it those performances have like a very striking silhouette. Like the poses that they strike are very identifiable. There's classic poses when it comes to like Hanuman, the monkey guy who fights the giants, like climbing on top of a giant to strike like fighting poses. Like there's a cool one where there's always like the giant standing at the bottom, like all sturdy and shit, with like his legs out to the side, and then the other performer that's performing as the monkey would jump onto his knee and sort of like strike a pose like he's gonna fucking like elbow him in the head. And they just stand like that for a while, and the audience goes like, ooh, ah, and I go, ooh, ah, because it's fucking cool. But yeah, that's kind of like the way that Varusian performances would go as well, I'd imagine. Like some sort of like that. I feel like maybe Bruce would go more into the direction of having the performers themselves actually talk as well, instead of just having like a narrator or something like that. The performers would be talking. I feel like that'd be a really cool touch. I feel like a lot of performers would ruin their drawings. No, no, it's not like painful to do those. It's just like it looks really cool, but is also kind of awkward to stand that way. But yeah, it makes sense with Varus, and it's sort of like unintentionally, or I unintentionally tied everything together in a very nice way, because taking inspiration from Thailand for the art of Varus was just like a choice, because I just like Thai art, so I was like, I want to use it in my world somehow, so let's just use it for this country that wants to climb the pillars. But what it ended up, it ended up becoming a chain reaction where I realized, wait, actually, this is a really good idea, because Thai art is drawn very splayed out, but also when you think about like rock climbing, which is another thing I really like. That's why there's a whole religion based around climbing giant pillars, is because I'm fucking obsessed with rock climbing, and I love watching YouTube videos of rock climbers climbing rocks. But a lot of the poses that people strike when climbing like cliff faces and shit are very splayed out and flat because they're hugging a fucking rock. But that makes sense. So if you were to illustrate the climbers in a Thai art style of them like very splayed out and like over exaggerated poses reaching for the next hold, it would look the same way that Thai art would be illustrated, right? Like the 2D flat splayed out exaggerated poses fit perfectly with climbing poses when climbing the pillars. So it would be really easy to illustrate pillar men climbing elegantly, with Thai art. And then also in the performances, they would obviously emulate, like in performances that tell the stories of heroic climbers that sacrifice themselves to reach the next ledge of the pillars, to reach the next point of their journey to ascendance. those stories would obviously have climbers in them as characters, and the poses that the characters would strike in the performances would be those same poses that the climbers did while climbing the pillars. You know, so it all sort of like fit neatly together. Where like, yeah, Thai art was actually the perfect inspiration to take for Varus as the country that climbs the pillars, because it just fits so well with the poses that the climbers would do. But yeah. Oh, and for Rom, they just love fucking Colosseum style gladiator fights. They're very and what I was talking about with Shabby and Sedeka, like the two of the people that I work with for like just throwing ideas back and forth, was it'd be really funny because Rom is very uh just industry focused and like machine of war, you know? Like we churn out soldiers, not we don't make art and shit, we make war. It would be really funny that they would have sports and stuff like that that they do for entertainment. But all of those sports are very coincidentally similar to things that would happen in the war. Just like to a funny sort of silly degree, where it's like, oh yeah, we have sports that we play, such as throwing the grenade or throwing the shot put that is the exact same weight as a scroll grenade would be. You know, so there'd be these competitions of dudes just chucking, you know, grenade shaped objects as far as possible, and that's a sport for them. Or um they Shabby and Sedeka said something about like capture the scroll or some sort of like shooting would definitely be a sport they would do, or sprinting, but instead of like having a running sport, just normal running, they have running with equipment. So you just put on a heavy backpack, like a bunch of runners just put on heavy backpacks and run like 100 meters or like long distance, just things that are very weirdly similar to what would be used to condition soldiers for war. Competitive trench raiding, yeah, like the type of shit you'd, like firefighter competitions, where it's just like the firefighters sprint out with a fucking ladder and just one guy just runs up the ladder, like doesn't even grab the rungs. He just sprints up the ladder, straight vertical up a fucking 3-story building, and leaps into the window, like that kind of shit. You know, their sports are basically secret training for new soldiers. I don't think it'd be very secret. You know, like I don't think the average person would be dumb enough to be like, huh, this sport is so fun. I wonder why the people that win first, or that win the competition, like the first top 10 people, always disappear and get replaced by other people. Like they get drafted for something. I wonder why. But yeah, I don't think people would be that stupid. They definitely know that the reason the sports are like this is because they're similar to the war, but also I don't doubt that Rom would put financial incentives in the prize pools for those sports to very much encourage their citizens to participate in these sports, which in a roundabout way conditions their citizens to be better soldiers for the war. Do they have something like gas chemical? Yeah, yeah, yeah. We have fumigation mages that basically turn things into gas, so they can just gas whole, like, uh, gigantic areas of the trenches in poisonous gases and stuff like that. What about sword fighting? Yeah, sword fighting would definitely be a thing as well. But also, like, in the deep-seated underbelly of Rom, there would definitely be like those gladiator fights and stuff like that with captured Varus soldiers and prisoners and stuff like that, for sure. But I don't know if the average Rom person would indulge in such things. Maybe. I don't. Well, I mean, like in the Colosseum, back in the Colosseum days when they still had those, normal people just watched that, right? Like that was just a thing. So I guess it doesn't need like a depraved society of mad people to enjoy a good old slaughter. Like, you just go with your mom or dad to the good old, Colosseum, watch a guy get eaten by some lions. I guess it's the context, so it could just be normalized to the point where, I mean, yeah, the war has been going on for so long. I feel like, yeah, I guess it would be normalized. You know, Mom, let's go to the Colosseum, watch them rip each other apart. I heard they just captured a bunch of Varusian soldiers. Can't wait to see them get mauled apart by our trench bores. What would happen if the dwarves meet a human dwarf? Celebrations, I would think. I mean, I, I guess a child, like a child would be a human dwarf as well. I don't think they could tell the difference as a dwarf. Uh, if you just saw a short human and another short human, you just see, oh my god, brother, like holy shit, we're the same height. Let's drink. I feel like they definitely immediately go to that. Just celebrations. Do they value the winners of the sports events that get drafted, or do they just get treated like any other disposable soldier? I don't know. I didn't think about it too deeply. I mean, if it's like a shooting sport where the goal is to be accurate and stuff, I feel like definitely you would be, if you did get drafted, you would definitely gain the benefits from being that well or that good at shooting, but also you definitely get drafted to be, you know, you to be useful with your skill set. You'd be a sniper or someone, who does that. Uh Gets to utilize the good aim. They wouldn't just waste you on a like simple normal soldier role. So about these automatons. Oh yeah, right. Fuck. Automatons, yeah, right. That's we were gonna talk about those. Little Timmy gets traumatized as the viscera of the helpless Varusian prisoners flies into his ice cream. Average Sunday. Yeah. It happens. It happens. It just conditions them. They get more used to it, which is good. Maybe the automatons could have ghosts or spirits. No, no. I already decided that the automatons would be controlled through a simple programming wheels. So giant, sort of big drums of programs or set of commands that slowly churn inside them. That give them commands and tell them what to do. I mean, I guess you could also make them like scrolls. Yeah, you could make it like a film reel. Actually, that might be even cooler. I guess you could do it both ways, depending on how complicated the action is. You could put it onto one big drum, or you could put a command onto two separate drums, or I guess spools, uh, that roll off of one and onto the other and get read off by, pins or pegs or some sort of reader. Um, and so you can have like a really long uh, uh, programmed words. You know what I mean. And then just to reset it, you just have to spin it back. And I guess you could also automate that as well, so it spins itself back. Are there any specific war crimes in the trenches? No, no. There's no like conventions, no Geneva conventions in the trenches, in my world at least. It's gotten to the point where it doesn't matter. Do they make stuff like counting machines? What are counting machines? Just machines that count? No shit. I mean, well, yeah, but what do you mean? Like, what do they count? What sides are dwarves on? Currently they're on Varus's side. Not out of like choice. They don't know about Rom. They they are in trade with Varus. They've been in trade with Varus even before the war. Um, so Varus got in contact with the dwarves and then started trading with the dwarves, and the dwarven crafts, like anything that they make pretty much, became incredibly sought after by Varusians and also all the other countries that were already trading with Varus. So Varus is like a very trade heavy country. They are importers and exporters of a bunch of different things, especially the Cabrax and stuff like that. But fine silks and fabrics and shit like that. They got a bunch of shit, and bunch of relations with different countries. So as soon as Varus got in contact with the dwarves, and only Varus got in contact with the dwarves, they had a monopoly over dwarven manufactured goods. So anytime any other country wanted to get anything from the dwarves, they have to go through Varus, which means Varus takes a commission. Um, so they got crazy fucking rich off of this, by the way. And now that the war is happening, you know, the dwarves are also manufacturing war machines, automatons for Varus as well. But the dwarves themselves, I don't think would have any opinion of the war, or any. I don't think they'd even have any sort of knowledge of the war. I don't think Varus would share that in any way because it's not really necessary. They tell them what kind of machines to make, and the dwarves get the goods that they want as well. Like the reason the dwarves are trading with Varus, by the way, is because there's a bunch of things that Varus can get a hold of that the dwarves really like that the dwarves can't get a hold of themselves. So it's good to trade with them. Especially spices and stuff like that. The dwarves are very they have very muted palates. They don't taste things as sensitively as we do. So when they discovered spices through trade with Rus, they went absolutely nuts. They loved them because it actually tasted like something. So dwarven food is incredibly spiced to shit. In every imaginable way. It's very too sour, too salty, too spicy, too everything. A normal person would fucking they wouldn't die, but it's not palatable for normal people. Um, but for the dwarves, it's great. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. Kind of weird that they're commissioning a bunch of minigun death robots all of a sudden. Whatever, pays the bills, yeah. I mean, can't complain. We get our spices. So like their drugs? No. The drugs like the grot they make themselves. I feel like they'd probably export it to or they'd sell grot to Varus as well. I don't know what Varus would use it for. It probably has like the same sort of effects that weed does. It doesn't like make you more aggressive or anything. It just sort of relaxes you. But to a very extreme degree. Um, so more potent weed. Maybe it has some other effects that might be fun, but I can't think of any that would be interesting. Would there be any individual dwarves who object to making war machines and only sell non-war things? I mean, yeah, I definitely think that there would be preferences amongst the dwarves. Um, but mostly I think the objections would, or the main conflict, little arguments and squabbles that Varus would have with the dwarves would be with making the war machines more efficient. Because obviously, after they are out of the hands of the dwarves, they are fueled by Varus's mana fuel sources, which means that all those little things that the dwarves put into their machines that make them less efficient in the eyes of the Varusians are not necessary. And the Varusians are always having this back and forth with the dwarves trying to get them to actually make machines that do their job and don't need to fucking sleep. But Varus can't really do anything outside of just complaining to the dwarves because they themselves can't really understand how the dwarven automatons work. Because I sort of feel like the dwarven automatons are like a nightmare of cables and just garbage, right? The way that the dwarves design them would probably be by feeling. You know, it's an art to them. They don't have like a strict plan and everything's very rigid and stuff. Like they'll put cables in and then be like, hold on, no, let's move those over and like change them a little bit. So the thing's a complete mess. All of the automatons are a complete mess and unreadable to any other like Varusian like engineer or something like this. So you sort of have to just plead to the dwarves to make it usable and then hope that your engineers can understand it well enough to like make it work in the trenches. And if it breaks down or gets damaged, fucking just leave it. Like I just give up. You know, it's not like any of the version engineers would make it work. Reverse engineered dwarf machines. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not like Varus doesn't try to. They definitely succeeded to a certain degree. Varus makes their own war machines as well that are inspired by the dwarves. I basically every war machine on the battlefield originates from the dwarven design, even though they can't emulate it in the way that the dwarves make them, and they still can't really figure out how the fuck the dwarven ones tick fully. They still take parts of it and use it. The Rom walking tank, like the giant walking tank that Rom has, that was the first tank that they made, but the way that they figured out how to make that thing was they captured dwarven automatons used by the Varusians. They captured them and tried to pick them apart and figured out how they ticked, and then sort of did their own twist on it, and then made their own tanks and then rolled those out. So the war like advanced into like bigger, more automated war machines because of the use of dwarf machines in the war. So those were the first, and then Bruce and Rom sort of made their own as well after that. The dwarves have their own war in the past, not to the knowledge of Varus. I don't think they. No, Varus doesn't think they had a war. Does the continent have a name? I call it New Garden, but well, that's it's very cheesy just because the YouTube channel is called Monster Garden, and it was a new. I made a map of the world and then I scrapped it and then I made another map of the world, and because it's a new map, I called it New Garden because it's not the old one. But now that map is scrapped as well. That was still those both of those maps, by the way, are still from the time where before I even added the pillars into the world and before there was even a war, or the war was very small, or wasn't the focus of the project. Now it is, and I am avoiding making maps because I don't think it's worth it to do it at this point. It would just limit my ability to add locations and stuff, and I'd have to redraw it eventually anyway. I'd rather just wait to do it like way when the project is almost done and I know all the locations that are there and where they roughly are. And if I even do a map, it'll probably be like a very medieval style map, the ones that are incredibly inaccurate. Like everything on the map is scaled wrong, and it's just like the purpose of the map is sort of like more of a mood piece to give you a general idea of where the hell things are, but not like an exact geographic perfect map of all the locations and shit, you know? They have basic World War One guns. No, they have muskets. The world's a little goofy with the time period I decided to put it in, or the not non-existent time period I decided to put it in. The trenches are like World War One, because there are different things that encourage the soldiers to dig trenches. Magic being definitely the main one, forcing them to make the warfare more trench based. But the guns in the war are actually still muskets, or powder guns, I guess. Uh, they have revolving muskets, like muskets that have multiple chambers in them and stuff like that, or muskets that have replaceable chambers with ones that are already loaded, so you can have a magazine of sorts. But the reason I did it that way was because I felt like if I had automatic guns, like machine guns and stuff like that, World War One style, to me, for some reason in my head, it felt like it was too fast, too loud, or like the way I imagine the audio of the war would be occasional bursts of gunfire and shots ringing off and cannons and bombardments, but nothing like rapid fire. It's just vibe based. The whole reason I just used muskets was because of the vibe. I felt like the vibe of World War One guns was too aggressive and too quick. Rapid fire stuff just didn't fit with the idea that I had, so I went with muskets because the vibe felt more right. I also think it's having a musket that has like 6 shots in it, right, with the revolving part. Um, and then just having a melee weapon attached to it makes the war a lot more brutal and sort of up close. The trenches are like a maze, pretty much. So popping your head out is like a death sentence. You'd basically be walking through corridors the whole way, corridors and tunnels and stuff like that. And muskets aren't that accurate either. So they'd probably be like not that far from each other when firing upon each other as well. And because of the low ammo count, a lot of wars or a lot of the fighting would resort in you fire your 6 shots and then you go in for melee, right? Which I feel like is a lot more like I like that visual. It's so brutal and shit. Um, and it's a lot more slow as well because after the fire you gotta reload, and it sort of gives you time to contemplate, right? Which is also like a part of, like a pretty big part of the world that I want to focus on, where it's not just like action, action, fighting, bang, 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 and then you know the war is over. It's sort of like the you shoot each other and then you sit in a trench with your buddy bleeding out next to you, and you sort of just have to deal with that, look around, and fucking you know watch the aftermath of the fighting. Moment to moment, more drawn out and slogged. Hundreds of years with automatic weapons would have whole fields coated with spent casings. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely more of a slog. I mean, the sad thing is I do lose the visual of like casings, which is weird, but yeah, like a mountain of casings and spent ammunition and stuff like that is a cool visual that I lost out on. But I think it the muskets like general the general atmosphere it adds to the world, I think makes up for that. Cannons could still use casings. Oh yeah, like casings are still a thing. But they like the automation in the world, like with factories and stuff, isn't to the point where you can just mass produce little casings for all your guns. So it's still like a lot of manual labor in that process. So, but casings are definitely a thing in larger caliber weapons. Um, Especially magic weapons, because you can have like there's scroll casings where it's basically like a musket shot but with like scroll paper and a mana like flask inside that breaks upon getting hit by a hammer from the back, and the gunpowder that ignites and gets infused with the mana to like amplify the power, and the fucking bullet itself and stuff like that. Like those are things, but they're a lot more high effort to make, so it's mostly used for like bigger important weapons, high cost weapons. Yes. How many gun manufacturers are there? Are we talking like Borderlands style, Hyperion, fucking Vlados? Wait, is that one of them? What the? I don't remember them. But yeah, I wanted there are only 3 manufacturers. There's Rom weapons, Varus weapons, and Dwarven weapons. Obviously, there's it would make more sense if there's like weapons from other countries in Varus's arsenal as well. But I'll have to think about that more. But for now, I only have 3. But I do want there to be some interesting differences in uh the weapons. Like Varus has their own different way that they make the weapons, where they have different mechanisms and stuff like that. But mainly the difference comes from because there's such a human touch in the manufacturing of them. Like it's not just like factory, all of the guns look the same. Um, this doesn't make sense, by the way. Like it's purely aesthetic, and it doesn't make sense for why they would do this, because in a war that waged on for this long, they would stop doing this out of efficiency sake. But for my world, I like it, so I'm keeping it. But they would add patterns and decorations onto weapons and stuff, depending on obviously how fancy the weapon is. But every weapon would sort of have engravings and ornate decorations on it, just because that's the aesthetic. So different artists who make those engravings would have different unique ways of doing those engravings. So instead of being like entirely different manufacturers, different like ROM weapons would have multiple artists and multiple styles in their weapons. Uh, I'm losing my train of thought. So yeah, they'd be stamped by the signature of the artist for each of the weapons. So the there would be, for example, like, oh, this artist in his lifetime he manufactured fucking like 100 rifles or like 200 rifles, and those are his, or not his, but he's the one who decorated them. So there's 200 of his rifles floating around somewhere on the battlefield with his unique style of decorating them and stuff like that, or signature style that he does. So when it comes to like the average soldier, sometimes soldiers are very obsessed with certain artists or gun makers, because there are, you know, like legends and rumors and stuff like that, and um reputations that start building up for different or different makers of guns. um so like, for example, I can't come up with a better name. Let's just say one of the people that decorated the guns is called a fucking uh they're called Smith and Wesson or whatever. They're called Smith. Um and so there's like 200 Smith guns, and one of the soldiers, like a legendary soldier, defended a whole fucking trench line by himself with a Smith gun and shit like that, and now all the other soldiers hear about that, and now guns that are made by Smith become more valuable. So soldiers start trading shit. Like they see another soldier that has a gun made by Smith, so they're like, well, shit, I kind of want that. Do you want to trade some rations for that so we can trade guns and stuff? So some soldiers would have different pieces of their kit be made by different people, uh, and or some would be kitted out with everything made by one guy because it has a certain, you know, legend or idea attached to it, where it's like, oh, this shit protects me because it, you know, it's made by this person who made these weapons that don't break ever. Legendary gear, yeah, yeah. So also, like, I was thinking it in a sense of like game cosmetics, for like if the world were to be a game, like how would I justify having different skins for things? And I was like, well, yeah, it'd just be different people's like designs on the guns and stuff, different makers. But yeah, and for Varus, it would be even more like over the top, because Rom is they're all under the banner of the Rom like factory. So they're all in the same boat pretty much, right? They all produce weapons for the war together. But for Varus, they do it more like you get employed by the church to make weapons for Varus. So it is independent, personally owned businesses funded by the church to make weapons for the war. So for Varus, they are even more wildly different from each other, and also as a downside, inconsistent from each other. But they have it even more different because it's independent people producing guns for the war for the Varusian Church. Trade guilds in ROM as a measure to standardize the guns, and other equipment so they at least operate a similar way. Yeah, so the gun manufacturing is all under one roof. So for Rom, they would have less of an issue with that, but Varus would definitely need some sort of guild uh, uh, to moderate or look over the weapons to make sure that they all fucking work, because they employ so many different people to make their guns. Would be funny as an FPS game for really long reloads of all the guns. Yeah, I mean that's sort of the downside. Is like I thought of the world as like a game, as a fun idea, but honestly thinking like the world doesn't really fit with the idea of being a game at all. It'd be a very terrible and nightmarish game to play. It'd just be a hassle to walk around. You'd die from fucking uh if you let me design a game, like if you funded me to design a game, you'd get the worst game in the world out of that, and I don't think anybody would be happy with that. You'd get a game where I'd get way too bogged down in trying to make it actually fit with the idea of the world and like make it authentic and true to the world. Uh, so you'd start the game in an FPS shooter campaign, and your soldier will walk a few steps. He'll accidentally step on a nail and die from a foot infection. Yeah, you died from purple slug. Exactly. It'd just be the most boring, stupid shit. Your whole mission is just walking for 4 days, and you'd have to set up camp and find food, and then you'd have to eat food, but the food would lower your sanity because you know where the food comes from, and then you'd have to manage your I don't even know. There'd be so many stuff to manage, and then you just die from hunger without even seeing the front lines, or you just suddenly get blasted by a fucking or by an acceleration mage across the battlefield, and that just be it. There's so many things in the world that can kill you that a game would just be the worst. I want this. No, you don't want this. This is not fun. How does this sound fun to you? You play for hours doing nothing and then you die. From off screen. Yeah, Earth Magic from off screen. And here's the kicker. He wasn't even aiming for you. He was digging a fucking tunnel and you just happened to be in the way of it. That's the funny part. Is like he wasn't aiming for you. It's just that magic is so powerful in the world that he cast a disintegration spell into the next trench's wall, and it blasted through the wall and just disintegrated you into the dirt. Uh, you describe a survival game, not a shooter. Well, yes, that's the thing. I would get bogged down in mechanics so much that it just gets lost. Diggs Hole gets 20 kills. The fuck? War Dancer gameplay. Yeah, but the thing is, if I made a game, I wouldn't allow you to play those guys because that would be too much fun. No, cause balancing wise, it's like I guess the best representation of what kind of game it would be if I were to make a game would be that game that just came out, or it's got a bit of a rough start. I'm waiting for like updates and stuff like that, and for it to properly come out, or for the for people to finish their thoughts on how they feel about it before I get it myself. But Forever Winter uh, is the game's gorgeous. By the way, like I feel jealous of the aesthetic of that game. It is literally what I'm trying to do with my world, just in the future instead of in the past. Like it's sci-fi. Two countries, like two giant mega powers, are at war, and you're just a tiny little scavenger between the two, trying to, uh, you know, trying to get by. And that's wonderful. I love that idea, and that's literally what I'm doing with my world. They stole it from me. I'm gonna sue them, but it's beautiful. But I've heard some things about the game where I'm like, maybe I'll wait a little bit. They got some weird mechanics going on that I'm not really a fan of because I like playing games at my own pace, and they got this like water system thing where water runs out at your base, and you need to collect water when you go out, and it's very easy to collect. Like, it's not a difficult thing, but it's a resource that gets depleted over actual real life time. So if you leave the game and just not play it for like a month and come back, your base has ran out of water and you can't use a bunch of the things in your base because it doesn't have any water because you just left for a month. I don't like that. I'd rather have it be attached to some sort of in-game thing, you know? So it's like, I'll wait that out. And also performance-wise, I heard that the game is a little clunky, like the frame rates and stuff. And I don't have the best computer, so I'd rather wait for them to optimize the shit properly. For some people, it was completely fine. For some others, not. So I don't want to risk it. I'd rather just wait. Um, but yeah, I definitely am gonna get the game if it like has a positive reviews in like the future. Uh, but for now, I'm just gonna watch people play it. But yeah, that game is probably the closest to what I'd imagine a game in my setting would be like. Just better. It's just better. Uh, my version would be worse, but still, it's close. We seem to have very similar interests, Mr. Well, yeah, I mean, if you found my channel and like my whole channel is based on my likes and interests. So most likely we will have similar interests because that's what my channel is. The whole world is just my interest, sneakily disguised in a very thin veil. I like climbing and rock climbing, so let me make that a religion. I like Thai art, let me add that into the world. I like the aesthetic of World War One trenches, let me add that into the world. Anything I find cool, I just add in. Literally the trend, like the mages, the way they like stretch out and get more ribs and stuff like that. I got that because I got very interested in castratis, the singers back, like I don't know when this happened, but there used to be these singers called castratis where they just cut the balls off of small kids, and so they never hit puberty. And when they grew up into adults, I don't even know if you could call them adults if they didn't go through puberty, but whatever. When they grew up into adults, their bodies would grow weird because, they didn't go through puberty. So they would get like these really big rib cages, which meant they would have like these really big lungs to be able to sing long. And also because they didn't go through puberty, their vocal cords didn't change, so their voices didn't lower and didn't crack. But so I got really interested in that and being like, how the fuck did we figure it? Like, who the fuck thought of that? Cut little kids' balls off and have them grow into a castrati and have them be performance singers with no balls, and just very weird proportions. But the reason I got interested is because there's no like recordings of what castrati sounded like, by the way. There's just these very strange ethereal descriptions of what they sounded like. Like the way that people describe their singing is very crazy. Like it's like angelic and shit. Like they could hold a note forever because of their giant lung capacity and stuff. But the reason I got interested in them because I saw a drawing of them. Like there's multiple drawings of these castratis, and they drew them really freaky. Like they just look freaky. They're big, tall, lanky, but like these really like barrel shaped torsos because of the ribs not hardening, and stuff. And I was like, I want that in my world. So that's why the mages look the way they do. They're like long and have like these big rib cages and stuff. Is because they got inspired by castratis. But yeah, everything in the world is that. It's just like, ooh, I like this thing. Let me put it in. Find an excuse somehow. And that's yeah. There's actually one recording of a castrati singing. I forgot his name though. What there is? I thought they all like died before recordings were a thing. I'll have to search that up because that is very interesting. I know there are modern castratis, but they don't get their balls cut off, so it doesn't count really. I, oh, they just like they sing the same songs, I think, and they like try to emulate the sound of how a castrati would sing, but they still have their balls. Um, so you know, not really castratis, because I mean that's their whole fucking name. They're called castratis, castration. But yeah, posers, no balls. I'll have to search that up though. Wait, so they can't piss? Yeah, sadly they can't piss. Um, I don't know where their piss actually goes if they don't have balls. Uh, that might be a conundrum for the ages. Not to you know, not to think about the cruelty and uh depravity of humans to cut little boys' balls off and get them to sing, but to think about where their piss would go. How would they piss? No balls. Oh no. It just falls out right away. That's terrible. No, but like that'd be terrible because then how would you perform if there's like just a constant dribble of piss? I feel like they'd need like cups to sort of hold the liquid while they perform and then they empty them after the performance is done. The same way there there's those poop bags on the back of horses that walk through town, to collect the poop. Piss is stored in the bladder, Simon. No, no. I feel like I feel like we're I feel like I'm right. You can have your opinion, but I do believe it's stored in the balls. I am. God. No, we're talking about castratis. Those singers that were kids that got their balls cut off and then turned into castratis. You can search it up. It's a real thing. It's crazy. You know. Opinion? Yeah, opinion. What do you mean? Simon, how do we get here? I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't think I'm gonna get any drawing done, honestly. We've gone so far off track. Uh, Typical stream, to be expected. How did they know that it would make their voices higher? Who figured that out? No, no, it didn't make their voices higher. You just, you have a higher voice when you're a kid because you haven't hit puberty. So if you cut the balls off, you just don't go through puberty. They don't get those hormones. So you just never get the voice cracks. You never get the lowered voice, but you still grow, which means you still get the bigger lungs that an adult gets, and even bigger though, because you don't get those hormones, your bones don't harden as much, which means your like ribs and diaphragm expand more, because those bones never solidify properly, and so they have big ass lungs and no voice cracks, and they still have that child voice range. So yeah, it's weird. So the mages can sing. No, no, I just saw the pictures of them and took inspiration for the aesthetics of the mages. It's not like the mages don't get their balls cut off. The my mages in my world do still have their balls. They have not gotten removed. Though I do think there will be castratis in my world, like mages that are specifically singing mages, like vocalists that cast spells through their voice. I feel like I'd cut their balls off for sure. You know, does anyone in the setting have any sort of photography chemical or a what? Have any sort of photography chemical? What's a photography chemical? As like stuff like cynotyping. I have no idea what that is. I'm sorry. I might be too dumb for that, or I've just never heard of it. Any method of making photos? No, I don't think there would be yet. Um, just because for some reason, it doesn't fit my idea of the setting to have pictures of the setting, like actual photos. It's still I still feel like it's in a time where paintings are the main way to capture a moment in time. A painting. Photometry. Stuff used in dark rooms for developing film. Oh, yeah, the that stuff. Like the little different liquids in the film that you have to dunk in them and then hang it up, and you can't do it in light because then it ruins it. Right. Stuff like watches and clocks. Clocks definitely are a thing. I think clocks definitely are a thing. I don't think handheld clocks would be a thing because again, I don't think wristwatches fit the aesthetic. What if instead of singing normally, there would be a hole through their torso and a tube coming out of his neck, and they would put on their mouth so breathe in like a tube, and magic comes through the holes. I have tried to think about the look of vocalist mages, and I do want them to look freaky, like something going on weird with their bodies to produce sound. I don't just want them to look like normal mages and just have them sing. There definitely has to be like some crazy ass augments. But I haven't decided on what kind. Big lips. that's the that's the metamorphosis that vocalist mages go through. They just get big ass lips. God damn. Long ass neck. Yeah, that was sort of the first thing. Larger lungs. Yeah, of course. Um, I kind of want to see a bagpipe mage. Yeah, bagpipes, some kind of thing like that might be interesting. What were we drawing, by the way? What was I trying to do? I think I was trying to do something. Oh, right. Um I might want to end stream. I'm sorry guys. This might be the end of the stream. We just babbled, or I just babbled. You guys listened, and that's going to be the end of it cuz it's late. It's almost midnight and I got other things to do. It's perfect. Well, I'm sorry if any of you came in expecting drawing. Uh I hope these shitty drawings on this page are enough to satisfy you. I look. The next stream's gonna be different. All right, I'm gonna change. I'm a changed man. Next stream, I'm definitely gonna draw. There's definitely gonna be some pen on paper action, but this stream's not the one. I've already lost my drawing motivation. I'm gonna regain it, and the next stream you'll for sure see some crazy lines getting drawn. You always say that. I know I'm changing. I'm telling you. Um, trust me. I'm gonna I'm gonna change. It's like a toxic relationship. Trust me, please. I'm gonna change, and I never do, but I will. He about to relapse next stream. Yap stream. It's always a yap stream, but no. Next stream for sure, for sure. Trust me, bro. But yeah, no trust. My favorite podcast. Yeah, but instead of a guy in front of a mic with another guy sitting next to him talking, you just see one guy talking to himself while you see a drawing canvas with barely any drawings getting zoomed in and out of. The best entertainment. You gotta go cold turkey and turn off the mic. Honestly, that would be the best way to get me to draw, is just turn off the mic. I might need to do that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I'll see you in the next one. And by the way, the next video is gonna be about automatons. That's why I want to like flesh them out more, so I have some better images to use for the video. But yeah, get excited for that. I mean, I can't really force you to. Think about that. Take care. Bye.